Today I would like to talk about atrocities committed by the regime of Saddam Hussein, the tyrant Saddam Hussein, in Iraq against political prisoners. What I mean by political prisoners are prisoners of speech, people who opposed his regime, although they did not carry any guns, they were not terrorists. They just had political affiliations or ideas or ideology different to the ideology of Saddam himself. They rejected the dictator regime, they rejected dictatorship, and they were aiming at having a democratic country. Now all these were suppressed. Any other party other than the Arab Ba'ath Party, which was created in I think it was in 1950s by a Syrian citizen called at the time Michel Aflaq. And Saddam was one of the Ba'ath Party members, although he was not a senior person in the Ba'ath Party, but he managed to kill all his seniors. So eventually he became the most senior person in the government or in the country, and he took over the leadership and became dictator of that country. Now, anybody who did not believe in Ba'ath Party was either imprisoned or executed. And anybody who had political affiliation or joined another party, whether it's a religious party or secular party, they get either imprisoned or executed according to how dangerous that party is. And the time that I was in Iraq, and that was in the 80s, the most danger came from the Shia religious parties, mainly the Dawa party. Now, there were people who were very ideologist in that party, and although some of them did not carry guns or weapons, they did not commit any terrorist acts, but they were suppressed or executed for their beliefs. So anyone who is suspected of belonging to Dawa party, which is one of the Shia religious parties, would be arrested, they would be tortured. The reason for the torture is humiliation, but most of all is to try and get confession from that person to find out who is his senior and who is his junior, because everybody in that party had somebody who is his master and somebody who is his junior or follower. So they want to get from any person who is arrested, they torture him until he confesses to who is with him in the party, and then they would bring that person and also start torturing him, so that they would get also names for other followers or other party members. Now, the way he carried out the torture was it was mainly conducted in the intelligence headquarters, mainly in Baghdad, in a place called the White Palace in the center of Baghdad. It was a big department headquarters for the secret service, or called Al-Amn, and there were some torturers or interrogators, and they were trained in how to torture people. They usually used to go to Eastern European countries, like at the time Czechoslovakia, to train how to torture people. And the methods they used to torture people is, one of them I would like to mention, is that they usually handcuff the person from the back. So they put his hands behind him, and then they would put handcuffs, and then they would connect the handcuffs to a chain which is connected to a hook in the ceiling or a pulley, and then they lift him up from his hands with his hands behind him, so his shoulders will carry most of the stress of his weight. So it becomes very painful. His shoulder becomes very painful. And what they do is they apply an electric rod. These electric rods, we know for sure that they were imported from Britain. They were, at the time, Margaret Thatcher was helping Saddam's regime as he was raging a war against Iran, which was the westernmost vicious enemy, led by Ayatollah Khomeini. And they would electrocute that person. They would strip him off, strip that person naked, and then apply the electric rod, usually to a very sensitive area in the body, usually the genitalia. It would be very painful, and then that person would jump up in the air and then fall back, and then his shoulder becomes very painful and even dislocate. I have witnessed people who had complete dislocation of the shoulders. Other methods which were used were flogging. So they use sticks to beat the soles of the feet, and that's very painful, as soles of the feet are very painful part of the body. And I've also witnessed people who had rods with sharp ends inserted into their back passage. They would insert it and open the sharp ends, so it damages the back passage, cause severe bleeding and severe pain. Other methods used was inserting a wire inside the male genitalia, inside the urethra, or the ending of the male genitalia, and they would introduce it deep inside to reach his bladder and cause severe pain, cause the person to urinate blood. I've seen a patient who was bleeding from when he was passing urine. Other methods used is throwing a person into acid containers, causing them to dissolve in that. So they do it when they have given up on any confessions. When they've given up, that person will not give any further confessions, because that will obviously lead to death, and death with torture. Other methods used was rape, and that involves raping women as well as raping men. And there were people who were actually working there as rapists. So they were purely employed to be rapists. Not only would they rape the person who is a suspect, but they would bring his wife or his sister or his daughter or his mother or any close relative, female relative, and they would rape her in front of him so that they would get confessions. At the end of these tortures, they ask the person to sign a piece of paper saying that he did subscribe or belong to that party, and that he's regretting now what he has done. And they make him believe that by signing this paper that he will be spared his life. but what actually he's signing for is he's signing for his life, his death sentence. So when he goes to the revolutionary court, which is a very brief court, and they would appoint so-called solicitor who does nothing. In fact, if anything, it's better to go without a solicitor, because the solicitor will be against him. They will tell the judge. At that time, there was a judge called Muslim al-Jaburi. He was head of the revolutionary court, and then afterwards he was replaced by Awad Hamad al-Bandar, who was fortunately executed. He received the justice that he deserved, and that was after the fall of the tyrant, and exactly in 2006, the end of 2006. Anyhow, when he goes to the court, he would have signed already his death sentence, not knowing that he has done that. And when the judge orders him to be sentenced to death by hanging, he would say, "But I was told that I would be spared my life, and I signed that under torture." And then the judge would say, "No, that's not an excuse. You have signed the paper, so you will be executed." I would say thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, and approximately I would say about a million, maybe. I don't have an exact figure, but I think there may be a million people from the Shia, from the Kurds, from the Communist Party, even from the Sunnis, those who opposed his regime. They were executed this way. And after execution, their bodies will not be handed to their relatives. If anything, the relatives would not know anything about their whereabouts. And eventually we found out that they were buried in mass graves. Many relatives were hoping that their beloved ones were still alive behind closed doors. But when the tyrant fell in 2003 and all the prisons were opened, they could not find any of these lost people, those missing people. And then they only found them in mass graves. So this is just a sample of the atrocities that I witnessed during my life in Iraq. I worked there as a doctor, and I will be doing other programs about other atrocities. Thank you for listening.